We're back with a bonus conversation you'll only see here on CBS News New York. So let's start by talking about Congressman George Santos, who this past week was indicted on federal fraud charges and also had to settle a case in Brazil involving a stolen checkbook. Can he in any way, shape, or form get reelected in Nassau County to represent the 3rd Congressional District?
Marcia, you have a better chance winning the lottery than George Santos has getting the Republican nomination, much less winning a primary or an election. It's not going to happen. Our chairman, Joe Cairo, said that under no circumstances would he ever consider running George Santos for anything, and he should just resign and go away.
But what if, as he said on our show last week, that he is somehow magically able to get the Congress to pass a SALT agreement? That's the deductibility of state and local taxes, which is a serious issue in Nassau, Suffolk, and all over the state, actually.
Nassau County, and I know them, has a few Congress members. I mean, the Long Island does. And I am sure they are perfectly capable of doing that. The reason that Congressman Santos can't is because no one will listen to him, because every time he opens his mouth, you worry about the credibility that spoke.
But yet, it's certainly possible that because he has a vote on the debt ceiling, he might be able, I'm saying might be able to, as he said, hold his vote hostage and get the House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, to approve his bill as opposed to the other bills that are there, and maybe he could take a victory lap. If that crazy thing could happen, is there any possibility that he could survive?
When you win the lottery, Marcia, remember your 2 friends over here.
Thank you. There is absolutely no chance that we would run him again as a Republican. He could run as a Martian. Maybe he would have a shot at that, but absolutely not. He, as the governor said, he's a liar. How can you deal with someone who lies about everything? He makes stuff up. He makes stuff up about himself. He makes stuff up about other people. He's made stuff up about me because he knows I'm a vocal critic of his. He just makes things up, and who can do business with someone like that?
So let's talk about the larger problem for you and the Republican Party, in that the Democrats are coming after you in terms of the congressional seats. They're coming after the 4 seats on Long Island. They're coming after the 2 seats in upstate New York. Can the Democrats reverse what happened the last election and get those newly elected Republicans out of office?
Well, it is going to be a robust election. It is a presidential year, so Democrats in Long Island tend to do better than they would in a local election. So I think that they will be hard fought. I think Anthony D'Esposito is doing a great job. He's out all the time. Andrew Garbarino, Nick LaLota. We've got some really good people. And I also think that we can hold the Santos seat for Republicans, because when we put up a good candidate, it's all about issues, and the issues haven't changed. If anything, people have just gotten more angry about what's going on.
Yeah, but in the Santos seat, there is the possibility that the former Congressman, Tom Suozzi, could decide to run. In that case, could you hold the seat?
Yes, I think so. Listen, I know Tom very well. He's a good candidate. He's been around a long time. He's got good name ID. But you got to remember, Tom lost the primary for the gubernatorial race in his congressional district. So he would have to mend some fences in the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party, he left a bad taste in their mouth by primarying Governor Hochul. So I think that that's a rift that he would have to mend. But he is an attractive candidate, no question about it.
Can the Democrats, Governor, can the Democrats take all those seats?
I don't know if the Democrats could take all of those seats. It would have a lot to do with how the presidential race is actually going and who the candidates are. We presume they would be the president and the former president facing off for a second time. But the county executive makes a good point. I think the most natural candidate for that seat would be Tom Suozzi, but it wasn't just his running against Hochul that became a problem for him. But there's time for him to address it.
So let's talk about the presidential race. We have the possibility that the Republicans will pick Donald Trump. Good idea, bad idea? What do you think?
Well, I'm not taking a position just yet. I've said it all along that I think President Trump did a very good job as president, but that was 4 years ago.
And since then, he's been indicted and convicted in a sex case.
Well, we could talk about that. That's a whole nother show. But let me just say this about the process. We will go through a process in the Nassau County Republican Committee where we'll evaluate all the candidates, and then we'll make a decision. We typically try to come to a consensus and not go off on our own. So I think it's important that we stay together as a bloc because we're more powerful together. So we'll discuss it. We don't know if Ron DeSantis is getting in the race. We don't know if Glenn Youngkin is getting in the race. Right now, basically, you have that business person. His name I can't remember, and President Trump. So let's see how it plays out. I'm keeping an open mind.
Governor, let's talk about Donald Trump as a candidate. Formidable, or has he lost some of his luster?
You have to consider him formidable. Just the way he communicates with people respond to him positively or negatively. It didn't look like he had a chance in 2016, and yet he won. He lost, but he hasn't figured that out yet, that he lost in 2020. I think if he dropped that from the conversation, he'd have a better chance. But I think he's got a big problem. I will give him credit for this. He has identified China as the biggest threat to this country many, many times over, and actually put $1 trillion up into our Defense Department to focus on what goes on with China and how they are a threat to us. At the same time, he goes out of his way never to criticize Russia, Putin, or anything that they do. In fact, he actually defends them, and that's what happened when he had the town meeting the other night. And I don't think that's going to go over very well with Republicans or Democrats, because Russia is a real menace and has been one for a while.
So let's talk about the other side of the coin. The present president, Joe Biden, says he's running again. Strong candidate, weak candidate. Would you like to have somebody else?
You know, what I would say is it's become very popular now to criticize people because they're getting older, and or because they've had these difficulties. I think when the public puts people in office, it's up to the public to take them out, unless they become medically incapacitated. Then you can actually do that. So I feel bad that he's been criticized over and over about that, because he keeps kind of chugging along, and that's what they said about him when he ran the first time and he won. He's perfectly capable of doing it again.
How do you feel about Joe Biden running again?
Well, I don't know if he's chugging along. It looks more to me like he's shuffling very slowly. Look, I think President Biden's policies have been a disaster. I think that they have no plan for immigration. They have no plan to deal with Russia. They have no plan to deal with China. I just think that the Democratic Party is probably going to look for another candidate. I can't see President Biden getting the Democratic nomination, but let me say this. He is the incumbent, and the power of incumbency is very, very strong. So could he be the candidate? Yes, he could very well be the candidate. And right now, he's probably the odds-on favorite to be the candidate. But if I were a Democrat, which I am not, I would be looking for an alternative.
But the Democrats feel that they would love to have President Trump at the top of the ticket, because the Democrats think that Trump at the top of the ticket, former President Trump, would help them take back the House. You buy that argument?
Trump beats Biden.
Trump beats Biden, but does Trump help the Democrats take certain House seats?
Well, it depends how it plays out. If they square off against each other, and President Biden continues on his downward spiral, which is, prolific. I think he's the least popular president since Harry Truman was at the depths of his popularity. Trump very well could be a very popular candidate. So in that circumstance, it may not hurt Republican candidates. It may, in fact, help them.
Governor?
I think that the House and Senate in a presidential year are tied more to the presidential candidates. So if President Biden isn't able to rally, help turn the economy around, it could be a difficult time for Democrats.
Okay, so it's Mother's Day, and I'd like you both to tell me about your moms.
Well, my mother, I'm very proud to say, was a World War II veteran. She volunteered to be in the Army during World War II. She was a surgical technician. She was the first class of women that were in the regular Army. She was sworn in by Eleanor Roosevelt on the White House lawn, along with the other, as they called them in those days, the Women's Army Corps, the WACs. So she was a tough gal. She was gorgeous, and she was a great mother. And I miss her very, very much.
Governor Paterson, your mom.
My mom is 93 years old. She'll turn 94 in September. When I became school age and we were living in Brooklyn, the New York City public school system informed her they would not put a disabled student in the class with the other students. My mother was a third grade teacher at PS 116 in Jamaica, Queens, and she wasn't having it. So she went around the state until she got to Hempstead, the village of Hempstead, and they told her that they were integrating the classes with disabled students in that area. And so they told her if she moved her family to Hempstead that I could go to school there. Now,
and where is Hempstead?
In Long Island.
Nassau County.
Nassau County, yes. And so we moved out there. My father was trying to start a political career in New York City at the time. He got moved to Hempstead with the rest of us. So you can see he was running the show in that relationship. And then I honestly am saying to you, Marcia, and to you, Bruce, if she hadn't done that, I don't think I'd be sitting here right now. I just don't think I would have gotten the education any better than I did in Nassau County.
So we're going to end the show with this question. What's the one thing your mother always reminded you to do as a kid? Governor?
Seemed like she was reminding me of everything all the time, but to clean my room.
Were you a messy kid?
Yeah, it's funny because I became different when I got older. I guess when she stopped yelling at me, I cleaned the room myself.
Bruce Blakeman, what's
my mother was a fanatic on manners. If you forgot to say please or thank you, you could get the back of her hand. So my mother was pretty tough on us that we treat people respectfully and that we use good manners.
So you always say please and thank you?
I try to, or I feel that I might get a smack.
Okay, well, we're going to end the show with that in a tribute to all of our mothers. And thank you both for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia.